Real quick, close your eyes and picture an FBI agent. Maybe you think of someone in full suit with a badge, and of course, infamous G-Man complete with fedora. Whatever you see, there's most likely one key accessory, the department-issued firearm attached to the hip, and all the arms they need to back them up.
But that wasn't always the case, and prior to the 1930s, agents weren't legally allowed to carry a gun. What changed all sparked right here in Arkansas, and Katrin Asaf has the story.
Only 50 miles from the bubbling namesake of Hot Springs, Arkansas, just past the heavily secured doors of the Little Rock FBI, stands a reminder of the Bureau's history.
It reminds us of the sacrifices that we may be called on to make.
A bronze statue of an infamous G-Man, the government agent on his way to bust criminals. But prior to 1935, this statue would have looked different, missing the F.
There was no real FBI yet.
And the gun. With firearms such an integral part of today's agents, it's hard to imagine a time without them. But the story of how the FBI became armed starts 90 years ago.
Just to give you a little brief history.
It's a story Robert Raines knows well.
A lot of people attribute Hot Springs to the beginning of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
As the director of the Gangster Museum of America, Roberts studied everything mobster for decades, collecting the moments in time that make Hot Springs known for its history.
All these bank robbers would come here and meet.
In the 1930s, Spa City was known as a haven for America's criminal underworld, a bona fide resort town for gangsters.
Anytime the FBI was looking for really anybody, back in those days, they could pretty much rest assured they were probably coming here.
One of the best in the business was Frank Jelly Nash.
He was a pretty notorious bank robber.
A criminal with a flair for nitroglycerin and his signature style.
He didn't really shoot anybody up, but he was always dressed nice.
Nash had escaped the Fort Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in 1930, and for 3 years was enjoying lying low in Arkansas, frequenting the many clubs and gambling halls. One of his favorites.
The White Front Club, just right down on Central Avenue.
Just a few yards from the museum, on an unassuming block, now a parking lot. But here, nearly 100 years ago, federal and local law enforcement pulled Nash from the building.
Told him somebody wanted to talk to him. He went outside.
Shoved him in a car and started the journey back to Leavenworth, setting in motion a series of events that would result in the deaths of 5 men and creating the Federal Bureau of Investigation as we know it today.
To know that this is the starting point for some of those changes that had a huge impact on our agency, it's really neat, and it's also very humbling.
The significance isn't lost on Supervisory Special Agent Ryan Kennedy, an expert on the Bureau's history.
We actually weren't the Federal Bureau of Investigation, we were the Bureau of Investigation.
In the Bureau's infancy, BI investigators had no authority to make arrests and no guns. A far cry from the agents like Kennedy we think of today. But it all changed with that ill-fated arrest of Frank Nash decades ago, and a failed, violent attempt by Nash's associates to free him during a transfer at Kansas City's Union Station. A fatal shootout that took the lives of Nash, a federal agent, and 3 other members of law enforcement. The infamous Kansas City Massacre, the catalyst for today's FBI.
At the time, in 1933, it was the worst law enforcement shooting in our nation's history. Congress got together and they enacted several statutes that gave agents the authority to carry firearms and to actually make arrests on their own.
A mission that resulted from the shooting in Kansas City, but sparked right here in Arkansas.
And this is the Capone Gallery.
It's these types of hidden histories that keep Raines in Hot Springs. Passionate about sharing the city's story with those who stop by.
When they all planned to get through with their bank robbing, they all came to Hot Springs and relaxed.
And it's that unique natural state connection that greets those who enter this building, passing by the gun-toting G-Man whose existence is all thanks to an Arkansas criminal.
Interesting stuff. That was Katrin Asaf reporting. That Arkansas criminal, by the way, is also buried in Arkansas in a cemetery in Paragould with the rest of the Nash family.
And besides the Kansas City massacre, only one other event in American history has been credited with changing the very fabric of the FBI. That was September 11, 2001.
If you'd like to see that story again, you can head to our website, KARK.com.